Hey, yo, what's good, everyone? Twisted here with the Open Sorcery, and today I want to go ahead and talk about the principle of ask, seek, knock. Now, with that, right, if anyone has ever heard of it before, this is based off of a pair of verses from the Bible, right? And I'm going to start this off by actually reading them off according to the New International Version, this being from Matthew chapter 7, verses 7 and 8. So it states, "Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds. And to the one who knocks, the door will be opened." So with that having been stated there, right, it's all about having the quest for knowledge, information, whatever it is that is going to be fulfilling for you, right? The knowledge, the wisdom, all of these different things out there. And it also could be experience. It could be, you actually traversing down different manners and avenues to be able to figure out, all right, this is who I am. These are the things that work for me. These are the things that don't. These are the things that are more so my forte, what I'm good at, my pros and all of that, right? Your calling, you could say. And also the things that are more so your cons, more so your weaknesses, the things that actually get in the way of you being as effective as you can be, become a better, improved, more efficient version of yourself, as opposed to saying, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and be average, be mediocre. And I'm not necessarily talking about average like, financially or, romantically or, any sort of standard of how, people usually live. I'm talking more so about like not living up to your own potential. And that could, go ahead and be expressed and spawned in a variety of manners, right? Which, sometimes fall more so in line with how people conventionally live their lives nowadays, whatever those standards are, and at other times it does not necessarily fall in line with that. So different than that sort of average. But alas, right, with this sort of thing, there's obviously many ways in which you can go ahead and ask, seek, knock, to go ahead and seek out into the world. Whether literally or metaphorically, of course, there's a bevy of information through the digital means, through the internet, through communication of the tongue-tied, of the digital sort, and so on. But alas, it is all about essentially either in actual going to different physical locations or not, exploration. And thus, exploration of the self, you can say, coming to know thyself, in relation to the channel here, Devi and I going on to covering many different topics. She has gone ahead and spoken about the topic of know thyself already and all of that. But, you can go ahead and check the channel. And, of course, I'll leave a link in the description and all that sort of thing. But alas, what are some manners and means which you can go ahead and find out different information for you to seek out there, to ask questions, and all of that, to knock on the door? Well, one way is, we already went ahead and talked about, digital means using the internet and so on and so forth. So different manners of informational mediums, and not just the internet, but, books, articles, written or otherwise, like digital, videos, films, music shows, so on and so forth. There's a variety of different things that are recorded, whether textually or audibly or visually, and that can go ahead and give us insights. And, visually, not just in the sense of words, but pictorially, right? Signs, symbols, different manners of art, all these things, So it does not necessarily have to be just, one manner, because we all learn in different means and methods, and that's what it's all about. It's about embracing the learning process and allowing your curiosity to come to the forefront. And I'll go ahead and tackle that in a moment a little bit more so. But of course, I mentioned different locations, right? So going on trips, going to places you usually would not, right? And with that, right, whether it be, say, a trip across the country of whichever country you're in, or say, it's just going a couple miles to a place that you may know of or may not know of, but you haven't been to before, or whatever the case may be, right? You can potentially find little golden nuggets of experiences or information, or more so signposts that can point you in a direction for you to put that little puzzle together of who you are and such. And then, of course, in going to different physical locations or digital locations of different websites or different manners of social media or, video hosting sites or whatever the case may be, here come personal interactions, right? And personal interactions and experiences are definitely enriching in their own right. And I know what I'm saying is pretty much fucking common sense, but I'm not going to lie. Sometimes you got to go ahead and state these things in order for people in general and for the listener, an individual themselves to realize or recognize, what it is that, I can go ahead and bring insight. It's like, I guess you can say, trying to give a spark to get the engine going again, even if the battery, has been on the fritz a little bit. So, in any sense, continuing is, out of that detour, personal interactions, it can open doors and insight and new opportunities. And along with that, right, just to say an example, I'm talking more so generally like, the way I'm talking right now is just more so common sense, you could say self-help or philosophical sort of things and topics and like an approach. But I guess to make it somewhat magical, what have you, in order to become a Freemason, you kind of have to use the ask, knock principle to actually get in. Officially speaking, like, if you got a buddy who's a Freemason and is trying to get you in that secret society, they'll go ahead and tell you, hey, look, man, like, unofficially, I'm not supposed to go ahead and tell you, but you're supposed to ask, you're supposed to inquire yourself in order to get that process going. Like, they are not allowed to refer people of their own volition or try to go ahead and spur them on. It's all about the person looking to be a part of it, asking these curiosity questions, asking these sort of things in of themselves to be granted entry and start that sort of official process of joining a lodge, wherever it may be. But you know what? It's all about trying to tap into that curiosity, right? Asking questions in order to keep that curiosity alive or to let it become alive for the first time if you're not really that much of an inquisitive person, in relation to all of that, right? If you happen to remember in school, at least, in America, for myself, right? At least when I was growing up, we used to be told the 5 W's, and it's more so 6 sort of words and questions, but 5 W's, because of the words starting with W, and you'll see why. So the 5 W's being who, what, when, where, why, and how. And I'm not gonna lie, when me saying 5 W's, I don't think it was officially what the whole thing was, but that's just what I'm calling it. In any case, right? So asking the questions of who, what, when, where, why, and how, whether it be in relation to trying to write a story or, trying to go ahead and, these are just the basic means in which one can go ahead and be able to, go ahead and allow the curiosity to be expressed. Go ahead and open those doors, you can say, right? Knocking at the door in order for them to be opened, to go ahead and tie it in with that. And when it comes to that, right, like the whole nature of curiosity and using those questions and asking repeatedly over and over and over again to the point where it may go ahead and annoy some people, but truth be told, right, like you have to go ahead and keep asking questions in order for you to potentially learn new information. And not necessarily just verbally ask questions, but, ask questions unto yourself to then go ahead and have the impetus to go find the answers through whatever means and methods that you deem appropriate. But yes, in terms of curiosity being the fuel of going ahead and asking these questions, to ask, to seek, to knock, and all of that, right? There are a couple quotes, and I'm not going to lie, I have quite a few quotes of, you can generically find and all of that sort of thing that are pretty popular to go ahead and talk about curiosity itself, right? But, curiosity generally, right? Like, I guess I'll start off with this one that you likely have heard of. Curiosity killed the cat, right? So a lot of times, like, curiosity is used as a deterrent to go ahead and, say, hey, look, don't be too curious. Don't get into other people's business. Don't do this, that, and the third. And in that sense, curiosity is not always given a positive light. It is given a negative light sometimes of being over curious, right? But to that, I go ahead and say a cat has 9 lives. So in that sort of sense, like, hey, look, you know what? Like, let your curiosity run a little bit more wild, and all of that. Because the likelihood is, if you're going ahead and you're listening to this, chances are you're probably not allowing that cat called curiosity to go ahead and roam freely or be able to go ahead and, use up those 9 lives, what have you. But alas, I digress. Moving on to more examples, and me being a repetitive, broken record as I am, more quotes to go ahead and drill the point home. So, going on to the good old Albert Einstein, right? Obviously, renowned scientist went ahead and brought about the theory of relativity. Once again, likelihood is you've gone ahead and heard of him, but in relation to his own sort of scientific acumen, for his, the reason why he was able to accomplish what he did, the fuel for that, he goes ahead and has been stated to quote as curiosity in these 2 quotes right here. So we have, I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious. And also another one that we have here is, the important thing is to not stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. And of course, that is what spurs on growth, right? For getting wisdom through, information, experiences, knowledge, so on and so forth, right? And the thing about this right here is, when he speaks about not to stop questioning, when you stop questioning, you go ahead and become complacent. And complacency kills the inquisitive mind, or you could say the inner child, that inner spirit, right? When we think about children, they absorb information and sensory inputs like sponges, but they go ahead and they're always asking why, or, they're going ahead and they're trying to learn, they're trying to absorb, because, the experience of life in the physical sense, right? This shell that we have, this material body, this form, all of that, right? Like, they're trying to adapt to it. They're trying to engage. They're trying to recognize, all right, what's going on here? What's all these things? What does that do? And all of that. And hence why, they ask many questions. Why? If you're a parent out there, or, uncle, or, you got a little sibling, brother or sister, you've likely gone ahead and gone through this sort of thing, and you recognize that. I'm saying the obvious once again. But alas, allow that inner child within you to keep asking those why questions, because it will lead you to new insights. It will lead you down the paths to more so understand not just the world externally, but who you are internally, right? So, there's a short story out there, that is not necessarily about curiosity itself, and not necessarily about, this particular thing, but I'm going to throw into this framework because why not? It works. Don't be the selfish giant, keeping the aspect of the inner child out of your garden. For those who have not read the story of the selfish giant, essentially he has a garden. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. And then some kids get their way in. And the thing about it is, when the kids initially do, they're enjoying this, lush and lavish place. but the giant is grumpy. He's once again selfish. He wants it all to himself. So the children, they go ahead and, they're, removed from the garden. And then, you know what? Because of that, the leaves, the foliage, all the different sorts of aspects of the garden, it starts to wilt and it starts to lose its luster and its beauty. And not just due to the seasons like the wintertime, but even in the springtime, so on and so forth. They're not coming back. So, and this is my very rudimentary sort of paraphrasing or summary as far as I can remember it. But yes, so the giants, they are not necessarily pleased with the fact that it's not coming back, and they're bewildered, like, why is the garden not coming back? And all of that. But through a chance encounter with a young child, they happen to recognize, oh yes, the children, they are who are bringing the magic to the garden to allow it to grow, right? That purity, that openness, allowing that to be a place where, they can thrive and they can enjoy themselves, right? And, that is a very generalized and not fully accurate way of me retelling or depicting that story. But in relation to this, right? Allow your inner child to be within your garden. Allow your inner child to roam free and enjoy it and experience it for all the beauty and, luster and all of that. Because, truth be told, right? If you don't have your inner child, as an aspect of yourself, going ahead and being able to play around, it will be a very barren place and all of that. So in relation to curiosity, allow your inner child to go ahead and ask questions. Be inquisitive. Ask why. It may sometimes be irritating to others if you're asking these questions, but it will help you in the long run. And if it's someone that's important to you, that's staying within your life, some sort of relationship of a, business nature, creative, romantic, friendly, what have you, they will see the fruits of that labor, and all of that. So momentary inconvenience can go ahead and lead to better results. But I kind of, digress from that. Granted, I am going on tangent, and obviously this is a monologue. This is me ranting and riffing in general, but to move a little bit more so on with the overall one. So, we have a couple more quotes here by Plato, and the first one is, learning is by nature curiosity. So, in that sort of sense, right? Learning, developing, it's pretty stated well right there, but learning, developing, it's, driven by curiosity. That is the fuel. And right here we also have, to be curious about that which is not one's concern, while still in ignorance of oneself, is absurd. So, of course, right, we've already discussed the nature of being curious and asking people why, right? But also at the same time, you can't just focus on the external. You can't just be asking who, what, when, why, how, and where to, anybody about what's going on with them or the outside world in itself. You should be asking yourself of these things, right? So you should go ahead and come to know thyself, as the Oracle of Delphi is quoted as stating, in a more so paraphrased manner. But, when you go ahead and you come to know thyself from experiences, from gaining information, knowledge, through becoming wiser as time goes on, then you should go ahead and take time, aside from just having these different experiences of sensory input, to then go ahead and allow yourself to have silence, solitude, and stillness. And that is another, video where I go ahead and rant and riff about those subjects. And I will put a link in the description below. It will have you to expound upon that a bit more, but take some time to go ahead and reflect upon what you've gathered, the information, knowledge, the wisdom. And following this, question who you are, using the newly found information as tools to see how strongly your current perception holds up. Then, of course, you can make adjustments where needed in order to continue evolving mentally, emotionally, spiritually, so on and so forth, right? And then, another quote right here. This is from Aaron Swartz, who happened to have a ending of their own choosing, you could say, and all of that. But in terms of his life, was rather accomplished, just like, Plato and Albert Einstein, in terms of who I've quoted. And of course, in relation to Christ, at the beginning of this. But alas, right? Aaron Swartz was pretty accomplished by the time he was relatively young, but of course passed way too early. But in terms of what they stated on the topic of curiosity, be curious, read widely, try new things. What people call intelligence just boils down to curiosity. So a lot of people can say, oh, you're smart, you're intelligent. You go ahead and you know a lot of things, or you know a lot about a certain thing, or this, that, and the third. But it all comes down to curiosity. How much you allow for that to run wild and to allow yourself to expand in different capacities, by learning informationally, knowledge, so on and so forth, or through experiences as well, and then going ahead and continuing to build, to grow. And then, of course, in terms of the modern day and age, if you're an Apple user of their products, or just generally are paying attention to those who have made impacts in that sphere of things in Silicon Valley, how can we forget Steve Jobs? And what he happened to state was, much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on. So with that, I honestly wanted to go ahead and leave that to the end, to go ahead and just emphasize, follow your heart and your intuition, whether it's thoughts out of nowhere or gut feelings or whatever sort of indicators you personally have for intuitive sorts of things, right? Follow your heart and your intuition and let your internal compass be your guide, because all in all, it will steer you in the right direction for what you particularly need. When things click, as you come to know thyself, that intuitional sort of piece of you will likely become stronger. You'll likely become more profound and all of that. Or at least you'll start to see things lining up more, dots being more so connected, things rolling out, being more so synchronistic, however you want to word it, phrase it, and or view it. Just follow your intuition. Allow the curiosity to run wild with the intuition as the aim, the manner that guides you. And you know what? I've gone ahead and, spoken a lot about this. That's pretty simple. But alas, I am broken record. But, hopefully in me hammering the nail, with this hammer of repetitiveness, you get the point that you ask, you seek, you knock, and ye shall find. So yes, this has been Twisted with Open Sorcery, and stay frosty, Neguses. Peace.